Hello and welcome to the Action Takers podcast. My name's Kyle Kierkees, CEO and founder of Shepherd Marketing. Today we're going to listen and hear from my friend Josh Frock from Mindshift Consulting. We helped him double his business in 6 months, revive a dead program, and build structure and systems for his black box to thrive. So if you want to learn more about the black box and how we've helped salespeople and consultants do this over and over and over the years, stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining me, Josh. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll dig into some awesome questions to share a little bit more about your experience with Shepherd Marketing.
About me. Mindshift Coach is my brand. I'm a life coach. Yeah, what I really love to do is help people figure out what's most important to them. And they say you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. And so part of the way I answer this question, I'm a pretty introspective person, is I look at the people who spend time with me and I like what changes in the people that spend time with me. And it's not just my clients, but my best friend, partner, people who spend time with me, and they get way more intentional and they get more clear on what actually makes a difference in life and what doesn't. And I'm here to help people get clear on what actually matters to them, not just on like a psychological level, but what are their emotions pulling them towards? Because when people get clear on that stuff, they get to make better decisions. And
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been working together for about 6 months now, and we've worked a little bit on and off together before that. The biggest thing that I see that you do for people is performance coaching, right? And really helping them get themselves out of their own way and helping them achieve more in the next 30 days than they did in the last 90 days. And I think that's such a cool thing because you can take, a year and help somebody get what they would achieve in 4 years in that 1 year in compressed time. And for entrepreneurs and business people and people that the more that they accomplish, the more that they earn, the better their life is. I think it's just a wonderful thing that you're able to help people with. So, with the work that we've been doing for the last 6 months, what was your biggest hesitation before working together? And what would you say about that?
Well, it's funny, you've given a great opportunity to talk about it right there with how you pitched my services, because the way my brain works is, I see someone, I see what they're capable of, and I see when people light up and I see when people don't light up. And, as I'm walking through my life, I chat with someone and I can just tell they're like sort of checked out of their own life. And so one of my biggest hesitations was, is this guy going to get it? Is he just going to like package this up and sell it as like something when, is this like, it's my baby. It's like my emotional thing. It's what I'm here on this earth to do. So my biggest hesitation, I'd worked with marketing people before, put you guys all in one big box. And yeah, one of my biggest hesitations was, am I gonna lose the joy for doing what I do? And it just becomes this like inanimate thing that, yes, it sells, but it doesn't feel alive anymore. So that was one of my biggest hesitations.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things when I first chatted with you was ensuring that there was alignment with what you're offering in your program. And the biggest thing that we did was just really simplify everything and put it into like a structure that you could deliver over and over and keep getting consistent results. So after we got over the hesitations and we started working together, what were some of the first things that you noticed working with me in the consultative way?
Something I noticed really early on was actually, you're super knowledgeable, obviously, and there's a lot of knowledge bombs being dropped. But even beyond that, I'd say the most important thing was like, I just kept being surprised by how much you cared and like how much you showed up. And it was like, it wasn't necessarily what we had agreed on, but you just like, it seemed like you just genuinely believed in me and wanted me to succeed. And, I help people with that all the time. And still there's days, there's times, stuff happens, and being able to just like reach out to you and just feel that you're there and you're caring. So the level of support was unreal. And that just kept me coming back because I was like, that's invaluable. I can't get that anywhere else. And then on top of that, there's some things like in the first few months, the momentum was actually somewhat slow to build. And if you hadn't been there with the extra support, I don't know if I would have continued. Mm-hmm. But it was like the next 3 months where things really started to turn around.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I think the biggest thing is, for us going above and beyond and delivering to clients and giving them the confidence to see the program kind of take shape. And, in the beginning, there is a bit of upfront work to get momentum going, but I just really appreciate how you did the work, right? And you trusted the process. And I think that's one of the biggest things for salespeople and coaches and consultants, and like, a solo professional salesperson, they're kind of working on their own island, right? They don't have a partner necessarily. They don't have necessarily a team to help them and support them. So like for me, the question was, how do I support Josh in Mindshift in such a way that I come in and align myself almost like as a partner, that he sees the value and believes in himself to keep pushing forward to achieving the goals and the results. And a lot of the things that we talk about, they're not really like, we have revenue targets and goals, but it's really about, am I aligned with this business? Is this business going in the direction I want to go? Am I serving my clients? One of the biggest things that you're always saying to me is, am I providing value to my clients? Because if I'm not providing value to my clients and they're not getting something that's valuable to them, I can't accept their payments and I can't accept their money, which I think has a high degree of integrity, which is why in the last 3 months you've seen your business grow at a rate that I think even surprised me, and also surprised you, and it was a cool thing to see. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the process that we went through, and what was the biggest thing that we did and we put together that's propelled you to build that momentum now.
In the coaching world, it's pretty, in my coaching world, it's pretty common that you can only take your clients as far as you've gone yourself. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be an expert in whatever your client's an expert in, but on a personal level, if you're helping someone with personal transformation, you need to have those beliefs and experience those beliefs and limiting and otherwise yourself. And one of the biggest things that really surprised me was, this idea that you introduced to me of the black box of my business.
Yeah.
And, as soon as you said it, I kind of was like, okay, I know this is a good idea, but I really resisted it. And you putting it out there and creating this concept of the black box allowed me to have something other than just like these wandering thoughts, that like a concrete place for us to live that I could visualize, like this black box. And it allowed me to start thinking about how much time do I want to dedicate to the black box versus the stuff that's outside. And what I think the transformation that happened like starting in January and until now is like, it was like 80-20, 80% of time spent outside the box and 20% of the time spent in the box. And it's really flipped to be 80% of the time spent in the box. And it was really, really challenging. And like without support, I know for sure I wouldn't have stuck with it. I've tried many times to stick with it, but as an entrepreneur, it's so easy. Like my creative brain just wants new. It's like, there's a better answer out there. I can create something better. And while that might be true, it takes time to create something that's better. It takes iteration and it takes that kind of discipline. And so, having all these new things that are never really getting developed versus developing the black box.
Yeah, well said. I mean, and just to iterate for our viewers, like the black box is the part of your business that is solidified and structured for at least 90 days, and you don't touch it. You don't meddle with it. You don't change it. And you could have like ideas and other things outside the black box, but the black box is the core business that fuels everything, and it includes a menu, programs and offerings, and exactly what the offers are and how to go about offering them to others and how to bring clients in, your onboarding, your fulfillment, all of these things. So many entrepreneurs, especially salespeople that sell their own service, they're always iterating and changing things and taking different offers. And then all of a sudden their business is almost like a Frankenstein where you have 15, 20 clients and every single one of them is getting something different. And then that becomes quite stressful, right? And then also at the black box, it gives you the ability to have a black box here that's 80% of your business, but then build another little black box here and test things so that you have a black box here and a black box here, and maybe there's a little highway in between where they meet, but they don't actually interrupt each other. And then the other big thing was, ideation, right? Working with so many creative entrepreneurs, there's a model that we take new ideas and we store them. So, it's like a kitchen, right? When you're cooking new ideas, you're kind of cooking in the kitchen, experimenting with new recipes. So then the idea is, the tzatziki kitchen. I mean, we play a lot with the food at my house, but you have this kitchen methodology that's like, here's a new idea. Okay, is it on the stove? Are we cooking with it right now? Is it live? The black box is really what's on the stove. So does it belong in the black box? Probably not. Okay, well then, where does that idea go? Okay, the next category is simmering. It's on the back burner. It's just bubbling and it's ready to go at any moment. And then an idea that's really great and it just doesn't apply to anything that we're doing right now, but it's possible, it's an opportunity that belongs to go in the creative pantry. So you can just reach in that creative pantry and grab that idea anytime you want. And then there's like the organic bin, the garbage. Like, that's a great idea and we're not going to do it and we're going to put it in the garbage. And we always know that we can go dig through the garbage later and find it if we really need to. And then so like when you have a new idea, then you categorize them. That allows you to focus on the black box and the operations and the development and the building of that to give it enough life so it actually breathes and produces the results that you're aiming for, versus always sticking new things into the black box. It's like, if you have a recipe for food and it's amazing and you start thinking to add new ingredients into it all the time, and then you're not testing it and people are eating it and they're used to the other stuff that they come to love, all of a sudden they're eating something that they don't like. And so if the black box continues to change, all of a sudden something somebody liked months ago, it becomes different, and then you don't know what happened and why things aren't working. So it's kind of like in digital marketing and paid advertising, you don't do 15 different things at once because then you don't really know what's working. You build it in layers. And every time we build a new layer, we almost have you document things every 90 days, you do an end of month report, you reflect on it, what's working, what's not working, and then we can look back at that over the months and say, did we detour and did things go down an incorrect path and what actually happened? So then it gives us the ability to actually optimize properly. And I believe that, a lot of people want to just optimize without putting in the reps, but you have to have the reps to be able to optimize. And that was one of the biggest things that you've done, is putting in the reps, right? So you've been able to grow your business without social media, without paid advertising, with some SEO, with a professional email, and the good old phone, right? The phone and networking and prospecting and being of service to others. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what it takes to have consistency and putting in the reps inside of growing your business from where it was to where it is today.
Yeah, a lot of reps. And the best ones didn't feel like reps. They were fun. It wasn't always fun. There were times when I didn't want to bother someone, or felt like I was going to be a nuisance, or I didn't even know what I was reaching out for. Like, times I totally botched things. There are relationships that took a negative turn as a result of this. But so I'd say in terms of the actual actions, I created a group of 120 of my friends and contacts and started asking them and then personal messaging them. There was a log that I took from January onward of every single person I reached out to, give or take a few, and just like thinking about how can I make this person's day better? How can I move this relationship one step along? And yeah, like it, on paper, each day, a lot of times it wasn't a lot. Some days it was, but then looking back on it now after like this part of the year, and you look back and it's like, okay, 500 of these or so. And I generally stick towards quality over quantity, but those are the reps. And some of them, sometimes it's just a quick message. Sometimes it's a 20, 40 minute phone call, even though you wouldn't approve. Sometimes it's going for coffee. And then sometimes it's like a legitimate discovery call. But all of that counts as reps and just building those relationships.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things that I saw in you was the shift of the intention of the call. I'm just following up, I'm bothering people. It's like, let's shift that intention to, I'm calling to serve them. I'm calling to be of service. I have something amazing to offer them, and I know that this would make a massive difference in their life. So me prospecting, calling, following up is being of service to my community. And I think that mind shift was a very powerful moment for you, and because you shift the perspective of like sales into, I've been talking about this as servant salesmanship. Mm-hmm. So from like sales where most people are like, I'm not a salesperson, and they're a realtor, and you're like, what are you? I'm like, I'm an advisor. I'm like, What do you advise on? Oh, I advise on buying and selling properties. So you're a salesperson. No, I don't. I'm not a salesperson. I hate that word. Well, okay. Well, that's our first challenge is, you just want to be okay with saying who you are and what you are. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think that was a huge shift. And I've seen that happen with a lot of other entrepreneurs where there's little knots in the mind and the heart that we can work through. And then once we break through it, and, along the way, you've had like personal breakthroughs and financial breakthroughs and like family breakthroughs, and you've elevated in your networks and with creating boundaries and just openly communicating what works for you and doesn't work for you. And so I think all those shifts accumulated have brought you to this point where it's now June 2025, and the target we set 6 months ago, you hit it. Mm-hmm. Right? And I don't think that at times you really grasp what it took to get there and how extraordinary it is. Right? Like we literally crystal balled, like, what would you like to have? This. Okay, great. Let's go get that. And then hit it. And of course it's like your business in the black box, the law of thermodynamics applies to it. If you stop applying heat and energy and maintenance to it, it'll dissipate unless you have proper systems and teams and doing that. But then they're applying the maintenance and the heat and the energy to it. So second law of thermodynamics, if you have a cup of water and it's hot and you don't apply heat to it, the heat energy will dissipate and it'll become cool. So just like your black box in your business, you need to always be maintaining it and growing. And that's why so many coaches and consultants in the space will say you need to continually putting in the reps. You hit your goal, you hit your target, that's when you double down, that's when you do more, because that's when we get complacent, we get lazy. And so you've done a really great job of setting goals that are achievable, that you can hit and then get excited about it. So maybe we can talk a little bit about, from January to now, what was the biggest thing that made a difference to achieve your target? If you had to summarize it, like personally what you had to do or what you got to do and who you got to be that got you there.
It's a good question. Narrow it down to one thing. I think what's top of mind is when viewing my calendar and my time. Before I was just reaching out to people, I was inviting people to sessions and one at a time. That's how I built my business. When I was starting that out, I just sort of figure like I'll just fill my calendar. I'll just say yes. Like if someone wants to meet, I'll just say yes. I'll move things around. I'll make it happen. And to me, that was the model of service. But and even there, that's a level above where I was when we first started, because there was a hesitancy to even do that. So we're talking now about level 2 to level 3, and that shift from actually looking at my calendar and treating my time like the finite thing that it truly is, and mapping out like how much time do I actually have to coach clients. And it was a stressful and difficult thing to do, because I felt this like this person wants my help, like how I need to find a way to help them. But sometimes that's not the most powerful way to serve somebody. Sometimes the most powerful way to serve somebody is to let them make a commitment and figure out a way to make it work. And that's a tough thing to figure out and balance. And I think that's like it's been a big shift. But as I'm talking, the biggest thing still just has to be that consistency piece. And tracking, as simple as it is, each month, there's how many people I reached out to, there's how many people I met with, there's how many people I proposed a coaching contract to. It was that piece, and having a structured menu of offers. Like you said earlier, it was just so easy selling my own services. I was like, I can be flexible. Like, yeah. I'm great on my feet. I can talk to people. We can just figure it out. We'll make a plan. It'll work. And in my mind, it was like, that's how I'm going to be able to serve. That's how I'm going to be able to make the most money, is I'll just find a way to work with everybody. But it never worked. It didn't work, because it was always a scramble. And then I felt like this pressure of like, they didn't like the offer we created. Am I being greedy? Is that wrong? And there were so many blocks to just like charging a big sum of money, or what is a big sum of money to me. But once we clarified those things and I just practiced doing it, like it sounds so simple and it's not new, but just practicing doing that over and over, it's like, I got used to saying this. I got used to doing this. Mm-hmm. I actually am not attached anymore. If you're like, that's way too expensive, I'm not offended. Like I made a bad price. This is my price. If you don't like it, that's totally fair.
Yeah. It's about fit.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is what I'm hearing is consistency, not changing the menu, and putting in the reps, and really trusting the process, right?
All the things we talked about.
Yeah, and like, if your business is always doing new, like, the other day it was like, oh, I'm going to do this workshop. I got to create it newly. It's like, why don't we just use the workshop you did 3 months ago? It's like, oh yeah, why don't I do that and just tweak it? And so every time in your business, as a solo entrepreneur especially, you create something new, a new program, a new offer, a new workshop, a new structure, a new strategy, it takes away from everything else. So it's like, how do we take something that's already created and iterate it, or make small changes so that we don't spend 15 hours on something, we spend 3 hours, and it still gets the impact and the outcomes that it had previously, and elevates the offer that we make, and that the value that we're providing. And I think the biggest thing was, having a set menu and structure every 90 days and not changing it week to week, but looking at it and reflecting on it quarter to quarter, but also being flexible and malleable within it. As long as the core service remains similar, and the way in which we fulfill and deliver it is similar and predictable, right? Like, now we have your projections of financing clients and revenues, and we know how many hours every month it requires to service this level of clients. So now we're like, okay, well, this is actually the capacity. Well, how could we actually how could we overcome that capacity? Well, it's this group coaching, and it's this, and it's that, and it's these workshops and digital services, and then maybe bringing on another coach, and what would it take to do that, and what level can we do that? And now we're thinking all sorts of different things. And it was like, what we talked about the other day is like, imagine being at 100,000 a month. It's like, oh my God, what would I do with all the money? It's like, well, that's the exciting part. Like, what would you do with it all? Right? You ask like Elon Musk, if you just got dropped $1 billion, what would you do? He'd come up with all sorts of ideas, be like, what, $1 billion's probably not enough. I probably need $5 billion. But if you ask somebody like, hey, if you had 100K a month, what would you just like, oh, that's too much money. It's like, let's give ourselves permission to think really big. And let's give ourselves permission to think really big and visualize that and see ourselves in that future, while also coming back to the black box that we have, that we're taking care of like a little chick that's just hatched, and we take care of it so it can be a full-blown chicken and lay more eggs for us.
With heat and with pressure.
Yeah, with heat and pressure. Exactly. You got it, right? So, I think the biggest thing is, that's why it's important to categorize your ideas and give them life, but don't kill them, but don't let them take you over. I don't know about you, but for myself with like ADHD or just being highly creative, I'm always obsessed with new. And Confucius says the hunter that chases rabbits often ends up with no dinner. So if we're always chasing 3 or 4 rabbits, we starve. And if we're only chasing 1 rabbit and we continue to chase the same rabbit, catch it, chase it again, catch it, chase it again, and get my friend John size, like, you got to get really, really good with doing the boring, mundane over and over and over, because that's actually what produces results and moves your business. So you've done really good at getting really good at doing the boring, unsexy stuff over and over and over, and that's allowed you to have the sexy, right, and the exciting.
It's funny, my powerlifting coach said the same thing. She's like an elite level, world-class power lifter, and she's like, what's the secret? She's like, get really good at boring, get good at doing the same thing over and over with like minute improvements. At the elite level, it's like you spend a year to like add 5 pounds, and to get really good at doing the boring over and over.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'd say even better is learn to make the boring fun, because if you make it fun, then you can do it all day. Yeah.
I mean, it's like in the beginning when we started planning out all the clients and the revenue and how the cash flows, you're like, I don't really like this. So now that you've gotten better at it and you've learned it and you see how much certainty and clarity and confidence it gives, you're like, I like this. It's good to look at it. It's refreshing to look at it. I know where everything's at. So what did it take for you to kind of like, because there's a lot of things in this process that there's natural resistance to. Mm-hmm. There's natural inclination to want to do something else. Mm-hmm. So what has helped you kind of overcome that and then get to the place where you are today?
Yeah, I think some of the things we already talked about. I mean, setting a goal that's a balance between, exciting, impossible, and like doable depending on the time frame. So it feels like something I could actually do, and having like being realistic, and realistic can sometimes shut down people's dreams. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, just like taking a real stock with what is currently possible and having that be part of the equation versus like, especially for really short-term goals, like, 15 client conversations.
Yep.
It was something I wasn't doing. I wasn't capable of doing. It was impossible for me, but it's not 30, it's not 40. It was like, okay, I could get there. And then I think just the consistent reinforcement every time I would fall off, because I would fall off for sure, over and over. And then instead of beating myself up, just like get that support of like, cool, how do we get back into it? What can we do today? What's one step you could take today? I think it's such a simple formula, but a winning mindset that we used over and over and over to get me back to it. And then having that structure of the 90-day, we're not changing this stuff for 90 days. Like small tweaks here and there, but not unless we're having a conversation, saves so much of the mental space of like, oh, it didn't work today. Maybe we should change this 90-day structure, which is a natural place for my mind to go. Mm-hmm. So I think those things all combined was just a killer recipe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the thing about not changing things is it's good to entertain change. It's good to consider, and it's not good to keep applying it and changing it. It's like, in life and in business, every single person, entrepreneur, is bound to get fucked up at some point. Life's going to happen, spouse stuff, kids, taxes, unexpected expenses, unexpected upsets. You are going to get fucked up and hit by a bus at some point. That's normal. It's about how do you operate when in that state? How do you get back on it? How do you compartmentalize that and move through it and look at it as, okay, this is bound to happen. Let's acknowledge it. Let's sort through it. Let's overcome it. And let's move forward. And there's been things that have come your way that you've dealt with extremely powerfully that in the past might take you out. And I think the biggest thing for you is being in communication about it and not going off on your own and being in some vacuum and thinking about it and making decisions that you would later be like,
girlfriend?
No, I mean, there's like all sorts of personal stuff and, like considerations, right? Like there's the business acquisition and there's taxes and there's other things. And just, I think like what I've really appreciated is you've come to me wholeheartedly, truthfully, and shared everything with me authentically that gives me the opportunity to really make a difference. Because when someone comes and is like, oh, I'm not making sales calls, it's like, what's going on? It's like, I don't know, their leads are bad. It's like, what's really going on? It's like, well, my dog and this and all these things happen. You're like, okay, well, let's sort that out, because that's actually underlying everything, and we need to get complete and be complete in our heart and what's said to be said and what we are thinking in our mind to be complete with our clients and to be there for them. So that's something I've just really appreciated about you and acknowledge you for that. And it's quite rare. And I work with a lot of sales professionals, and the ones that do the work, that trust the process, that get the fuck out of their own way are the ones that succeed. And like I always say, everything that you want in life is on the other side of your line yourself. You know what it takes to lose 20 pounds, to build muscle, to do all this. And yet you're sitting on the couch at 9 o'clock eating Doritos and drinking beer. And you knew if you just quit eating Doritos, you quit drinking beer, you had a calorie deficit, and you walked 10K steps, you would burn 20 pounds in 15 days. Guaranteed. And yet you don't do it because you've been lying to yourself about why you aren't doing it. And I think in our heads, it's like, well, I'll do this next day. I'll do this next day. I'll put it in my calendar, and then you don't do it. That's actually worse because you're giving yourself that dopamine hit in your mind that you think you complete it, but in fact you didn't. So you just keep reinforcing this like what I call the death spiral of like, and I'm guilty of it myself, right? So I think what we're gonna do is wrap up here, but if you're open to it, I'd love to talk about like, just really quickly, like some of the fundamental like material results that you've produced. When we started, you were at a certain revenue level. Now you're at here. This is what you're really excited for in your business. And in the past, that wasn't something that you were really thinking about.
Yeah, I think, let's do some quick math here. I think I'm going to be close to, if June goes according to plan, I think somewhere between 70 and 90K for June. I did a little over 100K last year in the whole year. So almost there already by June.
Yeah.
And last summer I had almost zero revenue, and I got revenue in the books now. I had a goal for years to sign a 25K client, and I was lying to myself. And I've now have several 25K clients. Let's see what else. I mean, at the start of the year, I wanted to become someone who could create 15 coaching conversations in a month with people who weren't clients, to create that out of nothing. And I did that consistently, and I overachieved in every month of the first quarter. So like, that's a skill that I learned. The results were those client conversations. We revitalized a business that was dying, the 5 a.m. club, which turned into the 6 a.m. club. And, I wasn't even gonna do it. And we created that group. You urged me to do it. And I had one person reach out to me. So I was doing my outreach, and there was like this voice in the back of my head. This was early on. It was like, man, you're being a sleazeball. Like, these people trust you, and you're trying to invite them to your program. Like, what are you thinking? Like, just a totally well-intended, but not helpful mindset that's not going to serve anybody. And, I was like, well, I told Kyle I was going to do this, so I'm going to do it. So I'm sending out these messages. And, I think those moments where the instincts of who I was in this case, clash with the behavior that aligns with these new level instincts that are going to create new results. And it's really hard to navigate that alone. And so having you is like, okay, Kyle told me, we talked about this. Okay, we're going to do it. And, I'm sending out these messages, and, this guy gets back to me. He's like, no, I'm not interested. And the thoughts in my head are like, oh, he's probably ticked off. He's like, what is Josh doing? And this, and then a little bit later, he sends a follow-up message, this huge long paragraph about what's going on in his life, what he's going through, and how much me inviting him to this program. He's like, I can't make that time, but just you inviting me and talking about this has got me thinking about my life and what I want to do differently and how I want to start my mornings. And like, I've had so many great mornings because of that message.
Wow.
And it just like, it shifted my whole perspective of like, why would I always assume that this is bothering someone, which for some people, they're going to be bothered by it. But there's also people who like want that opportunity, who I'm out there serving. And so that mindset I've used many, many times when I get into a resistant headspace. I think, well, what about someone who actually just really needs to be invited to this? They don't even need to do it, just being invited. Can I invite someone with that intent, that I want to create that transformation for someone, that they could say no or yes or whatever it is, but it's going to move them in the direction that they want to go just by caring. And so, that's a pretty big personal shift. And I think that, if I can just embody that more and more, over this next year, it's going to continue to create amazing results.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. What I'm hearing is the person who you say that you are and your commitment to that is bigger than the mind and the ego and the mind in your head telling you who you aren't, or your past version of yourself. And so I find that like when our commitment and our word with others is strong, and we could hold, like, you have a high degree of integrity, so you're gonna naturally do that. And if you give your promise to someone, you're gonna deliver on it. So having that promise live externally outside of you is one of the key things, and also a key thing for a lot of driven entrepreneurs to produce results. So we're gonna complete this right here. Thank you to all of our listeners. This is the Action Taker podcast. Thank you to my friend Josh for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.